If you have to write a personal statement essay for your application to medical school, the most important paragraph of that essay is the introduction. So today I want to give you some tips, ideas, and concrete strategies for making that introductory paragraph as impactful and as eye-catching as possible. First, hi, my name is Dr. Sarah Klebe, and I'm an admissions expert at BMO. So, the most important paragraph of your essay is the introduction, and the most important sentence is the first sentence. This is as true for academic writing as it is for writing a personal statement. So, when we think about writing in the academic sense, there are certain things that introductory paragraph needs to do and needs to be. And even though your personal statement essay isn't necessarily a piece of academic writing in the sense that it isn't an analytic type of paper, it still needs to have particular qualities and do particular things, and your introductory paragraph should model in some ways the techniques, the strategies, the approaches that are used in academic writing. So if you've had to write some essays as part of your university experience so far, or better, if you've taken an academic writing course, some of those skills are going to carry over. There needs to be some translation into this new sort of category, but some of the basic fundamental and theoretical principles remain the same. So I want to take a couple of minutes just to talk about what the introduction should do and be in academic writing, how that translates over to the personal statement, and then I'll give you some really great introduction strategies. These are practical, pragmatic, that translate into any number of different categories. They're fully customizable. They're just suggestions. I'll give you some examples, and you can work with them based on what your own experience is and what you want to communicate in your essay. So first, in introduction in academic writing, the first thing it needs to do is entice the reader. It needs to catch their eye, it needs to draw them in, and it needs to make them want to invest their time in reading your ideas. We often think of academic writing as being really dull and dry, and a lot of it is, but it doesn't have to be. And the best academic writing is writing that's interesting to read. And the same goes for your personal statement essay. You may sort of say to yourself, well, these are personal statements for medical school. The admissions committee is reviewing these. It's their job to review these. And, they read tons of these all the time. And my response to that is, yes, it is their job to read these, and yes, they do read tons of them, but that's all the more reason for yours to stand out. If they are reading essay after essay that follows the same general approach and uses the same general technique and gets sort of monotonous and boring, they're not going to be ideal readers all the time. And if yours has an opening paragraph that really just jumps off the page and grabs their attention, it's going to stand out for that reason alone before you've even started telling them all the wonderful things that you've done, all the ways that you've grown and developed into someone who wants to put in this application. So, we always need to keep our readers in mind when we're writing, and we certainly wish that all of our readers would be ideal readers all the time, but alas, they are mere humans, and so using some techniques to really stir their interest and draw them in is going to work in your favor. Second, in academic writing, the introduction needs to present the main idea and the rationale of the essay that will follow. Now, in the personal statement essay, generally you don't get a prompt for that, and so your prompt essentially is why you want to be a doctor. And that is the main idea of your essay, and the rationale behind that is, of course, all of the things that you've done, all of the experiences you've had, all of the qualities you've cultivated that have led you to this decision to apply to med school. Next, in academic writing, your introduction needs to feature a version of the thesis. Now, again, you're not going to have a thesis as such in the strictly academic sense, but you are supporting the fact that you are, that you want to become a doctor because you have prepared yourself in a number of different ways to take the next step towards becoming a doctor. So the reasons why you want to become a doctor, that's sort of part of your overall thesis, and the fact that you are ready legitimately to take that step is the thesis that you're really defending. Next, your introduction should comment on the significance of the thesis. In academic writing, we call this the so what, which is to say you're arguing this point, but so what? Why should your reader care? Why should they want to invest their time into thinking about this in the way that you have? And so in the personal statement essay, that means sort of the significance of the experiences that you've had that have led you to want to take this path to become a doctor. And then finally, ideally, an academic introduction is going to illustrate how the main points will be developed in the essay. And in the context of the personal statement, this means sort of referencing the key qualities or experiences that you've had that you think most support your application. So that's sort of the mindset that we should be approaching the introduction with. And now I want to give you some introduction strategies. Introductions, well, if you're anything like me, introductions can be one of the most difficult parts of the essay to write. I have a really, really hard time writing about what I'm going to write about, especially if I haven't written it yet. So I kind of, how do I write about what I'm going to write about when I haven't written what I'm going to write about yet? And so if your mind goes through the same kinds of convolutions as mine does in trying to just sort of wrap your brain around how to approach this, these strategies are going to be really effective. They're just little sort of thought starters, little prompts that you can use to spark an idea as to how you get started in writing this. Now, a little caveat, when I wasn't teaching, or when I wasn't working at BMO, I was teaching academic writing. And so academic writing is something I have a long experience with. Between teaching and my own academic career, I've got around 20 years of experience with academic writing. So I'm going to give you these strategies. I'm going to give you some just examples of these strategies in practice. These are things that I just kind of came up with about 10 minutes before I put this video together, but they're based on ideas and experiences that I've talked about with students and things that I've seen done well. So you'll see some of those experiences coming through, but note that, again, I have a long experience with this. It might take you a little bit more time to work with these and put them into the context of your own ideas, but doing that work is incredibly worthwhile. You know, you have a very limited amount of space to write for your personal essay, and when you have to be that concise, you really want to write and rewrite and rewrite, ideally getting expert feedback in between each rewrite so that you can really make sure that every single sentence, every single word is exactly what you want it to be, functioning as effectively as it can and making as much impact as it can in a really small space. So here are some ideas to get you started on that. Again, customize these to your own experience. So number one, and I'll give you 5. Number 1, you can start with a general statement. So the most common of these, the one that I've seen a number of times, is, I always knew I would be a doctor someday. And that's fine. You know, it is more common. It is something that they'll probably have seen before, but as a general statement, it's okay. You know, we could start, again, depending on your experience, from a very different perspective and say, I never thought I would want to become a doctor. If I saw that and I was reading admissions essays, it would definitely make me take a pause. Whoa, what? Okay, what caused that transformation? What led to such a radical shift in perspective? And has this person done the work necessary to really, you know, make that change of course that's resulted from this change in attitude? That would absolutely catch my eye. Another example of starting with a general statement: some people seem born to take a particular path in their lives. Others struggle for every step they take on that journey. If you're someone who's faced a lot of challenges and struggles in your efforts to get to where you are right now, that could be a really interesting way of starting your paragraph, your introduction. Of course, again, with all of these, you don't want to use my language. You want to make it your own, but just as an idea, that would work in a really interesting way to draw them in. And then my final example for starting with a general statement. This one's it's spread across 2 sentences, but it still has the same sort of impact as the initial sentences that I gave earlier. So I never had one particular defining moment where I realized I wanted to become a doctor, as if it were some revelation. Rather, this desire was the end result of long and careful consideration of my own strengths, convictions, privileges, and qualities, and how I can best employ these in the service of others. So that's really lovely. It's really meaningful. It does start off with that sort of general statement about your own experience and considerations and things like that. And if you are someone who is driven by that kind of ethical impulse to become a doctor, then something like this could be a great way to start your essay. Now, my second strategy is to narrate a personal experience or story that introduces the topic. This is probably the most common technique that I see students use in academic, or not in academic essays, in personal statement essays. And, you know, they're almost always really interesting as long as they're told well and as long as the point of the story is really clear. They're always, of course, going to be unique to you. And so you can talk about a time that you were ill or an encounter you had with the medical system, a story of a loved one who was ill or who passed away. Those are very common stories. If you had a particularly meaningful experience that really solidified your desire to become a doctor, that revelatory moment when you just knew that this was going to be what you were going to do, that would be a personal experience or story you could use. Or if you had an experience volunteering or working in a hospital, clinic, homeless shelter, doing medical work abroad, doing research, working in a lab, whatever your experience was, if some part of that really led you to this conviction that this is what you're going to do, this is what you're going to be, then narrating that experience would be useful as well. You know, humans love stories. We are drawn in by narrative. It does have to be well crafted. It does have to be utilized strategically in a personal essay. You do need to, again, think through the point of the story and make sure that that point is very clear. And certainly you don't want your entire essay to be stories. This is just establishing or setting up sort of a vignette that is representative of your overall drive, initiative, key qualities that you want to demonstrate, etc., to set up the rest of the essay. So strategy number 3. You can use an example that represents a problem or an issue central to the topic. So let's say you are someone who is driven by that ethical impulse to become a doctor, and you really want to emphasize the ethical voice and role that doctors have in the public sphere. Or you're someone who wants to devote their life to giving free or affordable care to people who can't afford medical care, you know, in some capacity. Well, an example that sort of represents that you could use to start speaking towards that impulse would be something like, and this is something I Googled just before I started this video as well. According to a recent report, it was February 2019. According to a recent report, 2/3 of people who file for bankruptcy in America cite medical issues as a key contributor to their financial troubles, even after the implementation of the Affordable Care Act. So, obviously, you don't want your essay to be about bankruptcy, the Affordable Care Act, or anything like that. But, if you were to, follow this by saying, as someone who is inspired to go into the field of medicine, one of the most attractive aspects of going into this field would be the ability to use my voice as a doctor to advocate for those who cannot access health care, and using the experience that I've had volunteering in local homeless shelters and at the local free clinic. I know that if I attain this goal of becoming a physician, I want to donate a significant portion of my time to helping those who are impoverished. And then going on again to talk about your experiences, key qualities, core competencies that make you suitable for this position. Right, so you still always want to refer back to those core competencies and key qualities, that ethical responsibility to self and others, your resilience, adaptability, inspiration to take part in teamwork and collaboration, your desire to serve others. All of those things need to be clear, but using a representative problem or issue acts as a way of leading into that discussion. And it also demonstrates that you are aware of current events, you're connecting to the headlines in the news in general and in medical news, that you are aware and already starting to enculturate yourself into the world of medicine. So something like that can be really effective in multiple ways, as long as you make sure to come back like right away and make it about you and what you've done that leads you to be suitable to follow this path. Number 4, you can provide a curious fact or make a challenging statement. So again, this is going to depend on what your inspiration to go into medicine is. If, say, you're someone who wants to go into surgery or another field where dexterity is key, and you happen to have a particular quirky thing about you, such as what I'll say here, you could use this as a curious fact. Only about 1% of the world's population is ambidextrous, and I am delighted to be one of them. Right, so that would be just something interesting, neat, unique to yourself. If you have some quality that you think would translate into the medical context in a really interesting way, then you can lead with that. Again, you want to steer back around to those values, qualities, core competencies, etc. But as a way of just catching the reader's eye at the beginning, that would be an interesting way of doing it. In terms of a challenging statement, let's say you were someone who is interested in going into geriatric care or end of life or palliative care, and you've had some experience working in nursing home or retirement facilities. Well, a challenging statement could be something like this: no one should have to die forgotten by family in a nursing home facility, and yet I saw this far too frequently in my time volunteering as a nurse's assistant in XYZ retirement center. Right? Whatever your sort of impetus or drive is to go into this field, you can use that as a way of setting the stage, orienting the overall narrative of your personal statement and drawing your reader in. Now, a quick note here, I've mentioned something very specific in terms of fields of specialization: geriatric, end-of-life, palliative care. Do note, if there is something that you think right now you might want to do as a specialization and you write about that in your personal essay in any way, note that that doesn't mean that you're signing a contract or anything, that is what you're going to do. It's expected that over the course of your education, as you're exposed to more varieties of medicine, your own interests and specialization intents are going to shift probably over time. So, if this is something you think you're interested in doing now, that's fine. You can absolutely speak to that, but it's not expected that that is what you will do. Maybe you will, maybe your ideas will change over time. But if this was something that was particularly interesting to you based on experiences that you've had, you can use that to draw people in. And then finally, tip number 5, you can start by posing a provocative question. So if you were, say, a non-traditional applicant coming from an impoverished family or community, you could use that as an inspiration to start things off. So an example of a provocative question here could be something like, what kind of impact can those from the deepest levels of poverty have on our healthcare system? What unique kinds of empathy are possible when a physician starts from nothing but devotes themselves to caring for the poorest among us? Using that to set the stage for talking about your experiences, why you want to be a doctor, that would be a very interesting and intriguing way of starting your essay. And then finally, if you were someone who wanted to pursue medicine because of some core ethical convictions that you have, if you really want to take on the role of doctor as advocate in our society, along with your practice, of course, you could ask something like, why are physicians considered not just leaders, but the ethical conscience of our society? And how can future physicians take on such responsibility actively and with intention? So again, pull it back around to connect to you, your specific experiences, qualities, competencies, and that could be a really interesting way to draw your reader's eye and catch their interest. So those are 5 introduction strategies that you can use either in academic writing, if you're still working on that, or in this case, in your personal statement essay. These essays can be really challenging. A lot of them do kind of sound alike after you've gone through a lot of them. So thinking about ways that you can still be, polished and professional while giving your essay a little bit of flair to make it stand out is a really great way to catch your reader's eye and really draw the interest of the admissions committee. So I hope you enjoyed this video and that it was helpful. If so, please do go ahead, like it, share it with a friend who might benefit from it. Be sure to subscribe to our channel on YouTube so you don't miss any great videos like this one. Follow us on Facebook, look for us on a variety of other social media platforms. If you'd like us to help you with your personal statement, click the link that should appear either above or below this video to go to bmomedapplication.com and schedule your free initial consultation. We'll set you up with one of our admissions experts to answer any questions you might have and get you started on your preparations. We have programs to suit any of your needs, and we're always happy to work with you to determine which plan will support you and your goals most effectively. As ever, thank you so much for your time. Take good care, and I'll see you next time.